Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm super excited about today's video because it is the very first installment in a brand new Q&A series over here on the channel. If you are interested in submitting a question, please feel free to do so. I would love to potentially feature you. You can email your questions to info@jacquelinebaker.com. The spelling and everything will be in the description bar below. So without further ado, let's get on to today's very first question. So today's question that I'm answering comes from Kashif N Yusuf, and he is just awesome. I'm going to insert all of his social media profiles and everything down below, so definitely be sure to give him a follow here online. So he is a founder and principal at a field representation and ground truth desk, and here is his question. So he asks, how can business owners, investors, or companies build trust when they are evaluating an opportunity remotely and cannot physically be there to see the real situation on the ground? So the first thing I'd like to dive into is, of course, related to social media, because it's kind of my thing. Kind of may be a bit biased, but I feel like checking out a company's social media presence can sometimes tell you a little bit more about them and, what makes them unique, their values, all that kind of stuff than their website does. Like, I'll tell you from a personal standpoint, making my website probably took me about, I don't know, I'd say maybe like 6 months for me to get it to a point where it made me really, really happy. And this is just this version. Over the years, I think I've had 3 or 4 different website templates, and I finally have landed on one that I like. So hopefully this will last me quite some time. I think I must have had at least a dozen people look over it and make sure, everything looked okay. The buttons were working. There are no typos, anything like that. But my social media is not like that at all. It is definitely a lot more candid. And I feel like a lot of other companies have the same kind of situation going on. So when I check out a company's social media to see, if I feel they're legit, I check out a lot of things. I see, have they posted recently? Are they responding to their comments? Are their photos and videos good resolution? The comments that they are getting also plays a factor. Are the comments positive, negative, a bit of both? So again, I definitely feel like you could tell a lot about a company based on their general social media presence and the effort they put into it. Now, it does not have to be perfect at all. We're all human. We can't do it all. But just checking out a page will give you a really good idea to kind of get, a base and idea of, a company and how they operate. If you want to go the extra mile and do a little bit more homework, you could also see if you can find some of the company's employees on LinkedIn. It's super easy to do so if you just head on over to their company page or even just type the company name into LinkedIn. It was not so hard to find the folks who work there and just seeing, their scope, what they post about, if you have good vibes. Oh, and also before I forget, I wanted to touch base on Google profiles, or Google My Business profiles, I guess you could say. Before I'm about to, dive into a product or a service that I'm not so sure about, I 100% will check out their general Google reviews and see, what's really happening at the company. Now, just to reiterate, no company is 1,000% perfect. Not of time until you have at least one negative review. So if that ever happens to you, don't sweat it. It happens. As long as, the majority of your reviews are positive, you're doing, the best you can. I do really appreciate and respect when companies take the time out of their day to respond to all Google comments or reviews, whether they're positive or negative. Of course, if it's a positive comment, thanking them, including their name if their name is public, and just thanking them for their business is super key. But then alternatively, if someone leaves a negative review, sincerely, apologizing and trying to make it right, I really do appreciate that. It gives me a lot of respect for them. But then it also comes down to actually what the negative review was. Did a product that they shipped arrive broken? Or was the product or service just not what they expected? Sometimes, I've ordered stuff online that came damaged, and it was clearly a shipping issue. You could tell it wasn't the actual product. So that's just kind of one thing to keep in mind. Or did the product not meet their expectations because it was too big, too small, the wrong color? So reading the reviews and seeing, is it actually something, significant? Or is it just one of those little things that kind of happen sometimes? This next tip I want to touch base on regarding our question is a bit more I guess it involves a little bit more work, is emailing the company and asking to hop on a quick 15-20 minute call just to ask them some questions about who they are, what they do, how they operate, and kind of scope the vibes. Sometimes, a quick conversation can answer so much more and give you a lot more peace of mind than studying, their site, their socials, their Google for days or even weeks, because you could really get, personal with the person you're chatting with. See, if they're nice, if they're inviting, if they're willing to answer your questions, and then get super specific and ask them things you may not be able to find online. So if you're able to, call up an establishment and just ask to have, a 15-20 minute conversation, honestly, if the combo is going really well, it may even be closer to 5 or 10, just to kind of get everything out of the way and out of the open. So that is also something I would recommend. So the last hack or tip I would recommend implementing is calling the business and asking for references, and then giving the reference a call instead of an email. Especially when it comes to important stuff like references, I feel like hopping on a quick call is a lot more efficient than sending an email. Emails can often get buried, and if the person just doesn't have, the time or the energy, it may slip their mind and you may forget to follow up, and then it just never happens. But actually giving someone a call, could be super helpful, so you can ask them exactly what you want to ask them and really get a scope of what it was like for them, being involved with the company. And then you can get specific in the questions you ask them as well, just like you would when calling in the establishments. And then, of course, if they don't answer the first time, just leave them a voicemail or send them a text. And usually I feel like people are a lot more inclined to follow up from a text or a voicemail than they are for an email, just because so many of us could get, dozens upon dozens of emails a day. But phone calls and texts usually isn't to that extent. So that's the last main tip that I would recommend. So long story short, you don't always have to go to, an establishment in person to really scope the vibes. You could, make the phone calls you need. You could do your online research, and hopefully it should give you a better sense if it would be, a good fit for you. I hope this answered your question, and I hope you enjoyed this Q&A. Again, if you'd like to have your question submitted in the next video, feel free to email it on over, and I will add it to my schedule. My email will be in the description bar below, so it's easy for you to just copy and paste. And thank you again to Kashif for submitting your question. I really do appreciate it. All of his info will be in the description bar below, so be sure to visit him over on his socials and follow him and say hello, because he has really fantastic content. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.